The legal battle between 2311 Racing and NASCAR just took an unexpected turn, and it's a big one. Until now, Judge Frank D. Whitney was assigned to the case. But now there has been a change that could have big consequences for the legal battle going forward. The change in judges presiding over the lawsuit between 2311 Racing, Row Motorsports, and NASCAR appears to be rooted in potential conflicts of interest involving the previously assigned judge, Frank D. Whitney. While no specific reason was cited in the official court docket, it is likely connected to concerns Whitney himself raised earlier in the case. Judge Whitney, who initially handled the case and issued key preliminary rulings, had disclosed a potential conflict stemming from a professional relationship with NASCAR's lead local attorney. This attorney had worked as a law clerk for Whitney for over a decade, creating a situation that could raise questions of impartiality. Whitney acknowledged this connection but expressed willingness to continue overseeing the case, provided all parties agreed. Although both 2311 Racing and FRM indicated they were comfortable with Whitney remaining on the case, recusal is often considered the prudent course of action in such situations to preserve judicial neutrality and maintain public confidence in the legal process. The decision to reassign the case might have stemmed from this broader context, even though Whitney's involvement was initially accepted by the litigants. Another layer of complexity may have influenced the reassignment. Judge Whitney previously served as a prosecutor in the high-profile 1992 Slim Buller case, which involved NBA legend Michael Jordan, a co-owner of 2311 Racing. Jordan had been called as a defense witness during the case, and while this connection is distant and unlikely to directly affect Whitney's impartiality, it may have added to concerns about perceived bias. The case has now been reassigned to Judge Kenneth D. Bell, whose background and lack of connections to the parties involved ensure a clean slate for the proceedings. Bell's judicial independence is crucial for a case of this magnitude, as it deals with allegations of monopolistic practices in NASCAR's charter system and could have significant implications for the sport's financial and operational structures. While procedural in nature, the reassignment underscores the importance of impartiality in high-stakes litigation. Judge Bell's appointment removes any lingering doubts about potential conflicts of interest and ensures the focus remains on the substantive legal issues at hand. As the lawsuit progresses, the fresh perspective he brings could influence how the arguments are weighed and ultimately decided. The recent reassignment of the 2311 Racing and Row Motorsports lawsuit against NASCAR to Judge Kenneth D. Bell introduces a potential turning point in the case. While procedural on the surface, a change in judiciary often brings new interpretations, priorities, and potential shifts in the case's trajectory. At the heart of this legal dispute is NASCAR's charter system, introduced in 2016 to provide stability for teams through guaranteed race entries and enhanced resale value for charters. However, 2311 and FRM argue that the system has evolved into a restrictive framework that disproportionately benefits NASCAR, limits competition, and stifles financial equity. The 2025 agreements proposed by NASCAR have been a flashpoint, as the teams contend they impose unfair restrictions, including a clause nullifying the team's rights to pursue future legal action. Judge Frank D. Whitney previously presided over the case and made significant early rulings, such as denying a preliminary injunction that would have allowed 2311 and FRM to bypass the contested agreements temporarily. Despite his involvement, Whitney had declared his intention to recuse himself due to a long-standing professional connection with NASCAR's lead local attorney. Although the racing teams consented to Whitney's continued role, his reassignment has now placed Judge Bell in charge of the proceedings. Judge Bell, a seasoned legal professional with a background in white-collar litigation and government service, brings a different judicial approach to the case. His interpretations of the legality of the charter system and NASCAR's business practices could significantly influence the outcome. Bell's rulings may differ from Whitney's on key procedural and substantive issues, such as the scope of antitrust claims or the balance between contractual obligations and competition law. Judge Bell's approach to the case will likely shape the courtroom dynamics, particularly on unresolved issues like the antitrust implications of the charter system. His legal philosophy and interpretation of federal and antitrust laws could either strengthen or weaken the racing team's claims. Bell may reassess rulings made by Judge Whitney, including the denial of the preliminary injunction. Although the decision was issued without prejudice, meaning the teams could revisit the request, Bell might bring a fresh lens to the evidence and arguments. Changes in judicial leadership often introduce delays as the new judge familiarizes themselves with the case. This could extend the litigation timeline, potentially affecting both the 2025 agreements and the operational strategies of the teams in NASCAR. Judge Whitney's history as a prosecutor in a 1992 case involving Michael Jordan, a co-owner of 2311 Racing, might have raised questions about impartiality. Bell's appointment removes any perception of bias, potentially strengthening public confidence in the judicial process. The lawsuit's outcome could have profound consequences for NASCAR's governance and financial structure. A ruling in favor of 23 Racing and FRM might force NASCAR to revisit its revenue-sharing models and operational agreements, potentially disrupting its business model. Conversely, a victory for NASCAR could reinforce its authority over team operations and discourage future legal challenges. Moreover, public perception of NASCAR as a fair and competitive entity could hinge on how the lawsuit is resolved. With Michael Jordan's involvement, the case has garnered significant media attention, adding a layer of scrutiny to the proceedings. Judge Kenneth D. Bell's appointment marks a pivotal juncture in the 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports lawsuit against NASCAR. While the full implications of his judicial approach remain to be seen, his rulings will undoubtedly shape the legal landscape of NASCAR's charter system and the broader dynamics of Team NASCAR relations. As the case unfolds, the motorsports community will closely watch for indications of how this new chapter might redefine the sport's competitive and financial frameworks. The reassignment of the 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports lawsuit against NASCAR to Judge Kenneth D. Bell signals a fresh chapter in a case that could reshape the competitive and financial dynamics of American motorsports. While the exact reasons for the change were not officially stated, the reassignment appears to stem from efforts to avoid even the slightest perception of bias. Judge Frank D. Whitney, who previously presided over the case, disclosed a long-standing professional relationship with NASCAR's lead local attorney and a historical connection to Michael Jordan, co-owner of 2311 Racing. Though both racing teams expressed no objection to Whitney continuing, the decision to reassign the case reflects the judiciary's commitment to impartiality in a high-stakes legal battle. This change could prove pivotal as Judge Bell's fresh perspective brings both opportunities and challenges for all parties involved. The case's central issue, the contested NASCAR charter system, has significant implications not only for the plaintiffs, but also for the sport's overall structure. A ruling in favor of 2311 Racing and FRM could pressure NASCAR to revise its charter agreements, potentially recalibrating how revenue is shared and how competition is structured. Conversely, a win for NASCAR could solidify its governance model, making it more difficult for teams to challenge the system in the future. Judge Bell's leadership in the case also ensures that any prior concerns of bias are laid to rest, enabling the focus to shift entirely to the core legal arguments. For 2311 Racing and FRM, the stakes are high as they fight for what they claim is a fairer competitive landscape. Meanwhile, NASCAR is defending a system it argues provides stability and predictability for the sport. The tension between these positions encapsulates broader issues of power, control, and financial equity in professional motorsports. As the lawsuit unfolds, the motorsports world will closely watch for signs of how Bell's approach might influence the proceedings. This case is more than a dispute between two parties. It is a potential watershed moment that could set a precedent for the governance and sustainability of the sport. With Judge Bell now at the helm, the path forward is uncertain, but undeniably consequential, leaving fans, teams, and stakeholders anticipating the next developments in this transformative legal battle. How do you think this change will affect the case against NASCAR? Post your thoughts in the comments section below.